Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Cleanworks Auto Detailing. My name is Mac. This week I have been working on a 2012 Porsche Cayenne Turbo. This Porsche received a decontamination wash, a two-stage paint correction, an interior detail, a wheels off service, and a ceramic coating from Ceramic Pro. Now, this is the first episode of the entire process because I do read the comments and I have noticed that some of you have commented that the videos are a little bit too long. So I decided to release the whole process in separate episodes. If you guys like this sort of style of production, please leave a comment below. Also, before we actually get into the video, I just want to say one more thing for my foreign viewers. I do look at my YouTube analytics, so I have noticed that a lot of my viewers are actually from Poland because you have noticed my Polish flags in the background. Zostańcie całkiem na koniec tego odcinka, bo ja mam specjalne pytanie dla was. Let's get into the first episode. Before every single detail, I like to pull the car out, take a good look at it in its current state, as well as look at areas that are of concern, such as overspray, deeper scratches, things like that. Now, this vehicle is 8 years old. If you own a black car or you have worked on a black car, you know that it's a total pain in the butt to maintain, and it shows every single little scratch, swirl, and every single little paint imperfection, and it gets annoying after a while. So that's why this vehicle is here. You guys will see later in the video in the inspection part about how bad the paint actually is. I'm pretty sure it was only exclusively washed at the automated car wash prior to the client's ownership. And one thing to note particularly about this Cayenne is that it has a full front clear bra install, as well as the rock chip guards on the bottom corner of the doors, and the entire rear bumper is wrapped in paint protection film. Now, the owner said that by where he lives, they were restriping the road and he hit some wet paint. So there is quite a decent amount of overspray on the front of this car, including the mirror caps, but we'll talk about that in the paint correction episode as to how to safely remove overspray or defects from PPF. So right here, I am spraying some iron remover. If you guys are curious if you can use iron remover on paint protection film, my answer to you is you absolutely can. It won't harm it, but just like using any sort of detailing product, remember not to let it sit too long or let it dry on the surface. After drying off the vehicle, it was time to clay bar the surface. Now, I am not using a traditional clay bar. I am using what's called a clay towel. I like to use these just because I think they're a lot more efficient and they last a whole lot longer. And you can clay bar paint protection film. You just have to be careful around the edges, and your arm pressure, but it's totally doable, it's totally possible. After you finish the clay bar process on your vehicle, this is the point where you can start to do some sort of paint correction, or if your vehicle is brand new and it doesn't necessarily need paint correction, this is the point where you can actually start to apply your ceramic coating or your favorite sealant or wax. Let's get to the inspection and see how the car looks. So once you've completed the decontamination process on whatever vehicle you're working on, this is where you want to spend a lot of time going over every square inch of the vehicle, making sure everything's nice and clean, paying attention to areas that need attention, and also getting a great look at the paintwork if you're trying to do some sort of paint correction. We're gonna grab our light here. All you're gonna do is walk around the vehicle with your light and just pay attention to certain areas. So let's start with the hood right here and hold the light, like I wanna say, you know, like above your head, just to get a good look at it. And this car was PPF'd from the factory. So all these scratches and swirls and all these imperfections that you guys are seeing in the hood right now, that's the paint protection film. We'll talk more about correcting paint protection film in the paint correction episode. If we look on the bumper here, we can see some white dots still. Some of it is rock chips, some of it is overspray. Headlights are also PPF'd, and these are just, they're actually pretty bad in my opinion, but we'll see what we can do about those. Pay attention to your plastic trim. For example, in this case, there is a little bit of overspray on this plastic trim, including in here. It's not a lot, but you can see some of it. Here's the fender. This is also PPF'd. We look on the mirror here. It does have some rock chips in it. That's not a huge deal. Still some overspray left. And look at that, guys. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. This is not for me. This is just like when the car was washed at some point or another. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's like some old wax residue on the plastics. You guys want to make sure you clean that. Look at the pillars. And check your roof. This is commonly overlooked, but this is basically where most people press the hardest when they're washing a car. Like, look at that. This car looks good when the lights are on, but when you actually get intimate with the car, it's actually pretty bad. The car is like a tiny bit dusty just because it's been sitting in here all night. This is the driver's side door. The whole entire vehicle looks like this. Some severe swirl marks going on, some holograms. Looking at the bottom of the plastics, they don't look too bad. Those will get coated and protected as well. This is that piece of PPF. This is also pretty bad, but we can restore that a little bit. Here's the quarter panel. And here's the interesting part, guys. So I told you that the rear bumper is completely wrapped in paint protection film. And this is a good example of why PPF is actually a pretty good investment. So you look at the quarter panel, okay, the paint is what it is, and then you move down to where there is PPF installed, and it's just a world of difference. Does the PPF have scratches and swirls in it? Absolutely, but it's definitely on a much better level than the panel that is not protected. Pay attention to any lights, tail lights, headlights, fog lights. Look at these taillights, guys. I mean, this Porsche hasn't probably been properly detailed in its entire life. Like I said, this is a 2012. A good tip is pay attention to your emblems, because unless you're a detailer, then no one cleans in between the letters. Exhibit A. Even though I went around everything and cleaned it, there is so much gunk in between where the Cayenne is and the turbo that we're gonna have to address that separately. Same thing with the Porsche badging across the back. We look at the rear license plate area. It looks like there's some sanding marks going right here, perhaps even some severe paint damage. This is the rear trunk area, the top of the rear bumper. So yes, it's going to have deep scratches and swirls just because when you're loading stuff in and out of your car, you know, that happens. That's kind of pretty standard stuff, especially on a car that's 8 years old. Moving on to the other side, I mean, it's basically the same as the side we just looked at. The B pillars, or C pillars, I'm sorry, are pretty severely scratched up and swirled up. Same thing with the B pillars. The driver's side is actually much worse than this side as far as the pillars go, but the entire vehicle looks like this. So we have our work cut out for us. We can see some more old wax residue along the bottom of the mirror right there where it meets the door. So when you open the door, sometimes your nails catch on the cupped part behind the door handle. But this is what happens over the years. Scratches it up. So you want to pay attention to those areas as well. So for the sake of the video, the inspection was only a couple minutes long. However, off camera, I spent about, I want to say like half an hour going over the car and just taking notes down. And you really want to spend a lot of time inspecting the car. This is why we do a decontamination wash. It's because it strips everything that might be on the surface, whether it's dirt, dust, debris, or a protective glaze, or a wax of some kind, or a protective coating that has fillers in it. When you strip all that away doing the decontamination process and actually go look at the car, you can see what you're actually working with. And that's the importance of doing a decontamination wash. You get a true visual look as to how the car actually looks like without anything on it. If you guys do decide to do a decontamination wash on your vehicle, in some cases, you might get a little bit upset. Now, I'm only saying that is because if you do everything properly, you follow all the steps correctly, and you strip everything away from the surface of your vehicle, it might actually look a little bit worse than when it did have that wax on there, or when it did have that filler glaze on it, things like that. But if you do everything right, and your car looks worse, then that means that your car has always looked like this. It just basically had a mask on it. Really hope you guys enjoyed episode 1. I'll see you in episode 2. If you want to follow along with this series, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give me a like, share it with your friends, and I really hope that you guys have learned something in this one episode, and there's a bunch more to come. I'll see you in the next video. My name is Mac. Stay clean. Jesteście? Cool. Słuchajcie, po pierwsze, ja się nie nazywam Mac, nazywam się Maciek. Ja tylko przedstawiam się jako Mac, bo tutaj w Ameryce ludzie nie umią powiedzieć Maciek. Ja nie myślę, że to jest takie trudne imię, żeby powiedzieć, ale zresztą. No to ja chciałbym się formalnie przedstawić. Nazywam się Maciek. Mieszkam tutaj w Stanach Zjednoczonych, w okolicach Chicago i prowadzę swój garaż auto detailingowy. Pracuję i nakładam podkład ceramiczny na dużo dość luksusowych aut, Porszawki, Mercedesy, BM-ki i tak dalej. Rozmawiałem z ojcem i on mi dał dobry pomysł. Bo ja wiem, że na YouTubie jest taki gostek, co się nazywa Pan the Organizer. Mieszka w Kanadzie i on robi takie filmiki. Robi jeden filmik po angielsku i ten sam filmik, ale po francusku. To jest ten sam filmik, ale tylko po prostu w innych językach. No to moje pytanie dla was jest takie. Dajcie mi znać w komentarzu, czy byście chcieli po prostu jeden filmik po angielsku, drugi filmik po polsku, ten sam, tylko w innych językach, czy zrobić drugi kanał, co jest ten sam styl filmików, tylko po prostu po polsku. Patrzyłem na YouTubie i zobaczyłem, że są tylko może 2 czy 3 takich chłopaków, co robią auto detailing po polsku, ale to jest w Polsce, czy tam w Europie, czy tam w Anglii, ale ja wiem, że dużo z was mają interes w Stanach i byście chcieli zobaczyć, jakie samochody ludzie tutaj jeżdżą i tak dalej. Dajcie mi znać w komentarzu. Zobaczę was w następnym odcinku. Stay clean. Na razie.